Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar on taking the right path for server to cloud migrations with one of our platinum partners, eCore Consulting. And with that, let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Olav. I'm a marketing director here at Tempo. I've been with the company for 4 years now, and I'm really pleased to welcome one of our guests, Alison Carlson from eCore Consulting. And we also have Daniel Scott, our product marketing director, and Lena Jonsson, one of our product managers, joining us today. Maybe if we start with short introductions. Alison, would you mind going first?
Sure. Thank you, Ola. I'm Alison Carlson. I'm with eCore. We're an Atlassian solutions partner, and I've been with eCore for 5 years as an Atlassian consultant. Daniel?
Great. Thanks, Alison. Yes, Daniel Scott. I'm the product marketing director here at Tempo. Been with the company for 4 or 5 months now. So yeah, very, very excited to be on the call today. Thank you so much for the great attendance that we're seeing. Alison, great having the eCore team on. Obviously a very important strategic partner for Tempo. So very much looking forward to the webinar today, and hopefully getting some good questions from the audience. So yeah, great to be here.
Hi, my name is Lena Jonsson. I'm a product manager at Tempo. I've been here for 5-6 years now as a product manager. I've been focusing on our efforts to support the migration journey of Tempo Jira customers that want to move from server to cloud.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really happy to have you all here today. And with that, we will turn off our cameras and go back to the presentation. And I'll quickly go over the agenda today. So we'll start with a short introduction about Tempo and some cloud myths that are out there. Then we will hand it over to Alison, who will walk you through a use case and highlight some pitfalls for you to avoid. And Lena will follow up with a quick status update on Tempo's commitment to migration. And finally, we will round up the session with a Q&A at the end. And with that, I will hand it over to Daniel. Take it away.
That's great. Thank you so much, Olof. So Tempo, for those who may be unaware, is the market leader in time tracking solutions. And our suite of products includes timesheets that a lot of people may be familiar with, Tempo Planner, cost tracker for timesheets, and also Tempo budgets. And we've been around for a few years now, since about 2007. So some of you on the call may already know Tempo quite well, and you've already experienced how our tools can give you and your teams what you need to really efficiently manage your time, your tasks, and your projects. Some others may be new to Tempo, and also from your server to cloud migration journey, maybe early in that process. So we're looking forward to giving you some information around that, how that activity may actually unfold, and give you some pointers in terms of best practice for server to cloud migrations. And obviously very excited to have eCore on the call to help explain some of the intricacies of that migration. And they're also going to give us a great update on a recent custom migration they just completed, which I think will be of great interest to everybody on the call today. So here's just a sample of some of the more than 20,000 customers who currently benefit from using Tempo. We have customers ranging from small consulting agencies to literally dozens of the world's most prestigious brands. And as more and more companies rely on software solutions and software development as a key factor in their strategy and ongoing success, it becomes increasingly important to track time spent on a variety of different projects and different initiatives. And whether you're a large or small company, you really don't need me to tell you that tracking time accurately in real time is essential. And as a cloud-first company, Tempo offers a number of solutions to our customers looking to cloud as their preferred deployment option for technology solutions, and we'll cover some of those benefits, some of the benefits of this approach during the course of this webinar. But with that being said, there remain a few common misconceptions about what cloud is, and perhaps where there are some concerns that we hear from customers. So for example, data security is often cited as an issue when the actual reality is cloud companies, Tempo, eCore included, adhere to extraordinarily stringent security protocols, including access controls, encryption, automatic redundancy failovers, I should say, guaranteed uptime SLAs, and much, much more. And in terms of a second myth, Tempo's customers enjoy many of the same benefits, be they on server or on cloud, but the deployment architecture allows for some significant differences in feature and functionality. And in terms of the third myth, there's really two words here, and they are hidden costs. So, and this is something that eCore is going to explain in a little more detail later on. But if you're simply comparing the cost of maintenance and support on server versus a cloud subscription, you're really comparing, apples to aeroplanes. And when you consider total cost of ownership over the lifetime of an application or a product, you also have to factor in hardware maintenance and upgrades, user and security administration, implementation overheads, and really a wide variety of additional costs that eCore are going to cover in a little more detail later on in the webinar. And from the fourth myth, so according to Atlassian, about 80% of Fortune 500 companies have an Atlassian Cloud license, and more than 90% of new customers choose cloud first. And another data point for surety is that as of February last year, probably 90% of the Fortune 500 use Microsoft Cloud services. So again, really no cause for alarm when it comes to the fourth myth here. In terms of the fifth myth, Atlassian themselves dispel this claim. They cite that more than 1,000 apps and integrations available today in the cloud, with developers building and releasing more all the time. And the Atlassian Marketplace has added in excess of 250 cloud applications and integrations in the last 12 months or so alone. And the vast majority of Marketplace apps offer cloud deployment as an option. And in some cases, it really is the only choice. And for our sixth myth, in terms of maintaining data through the migration, Tempo is working in lockstep with Atlassian and our network of business partners, such as eCore, on a variety of migration tools, which will really take the legwork out of data migration to the cloud instances of our products. And you'll hear more on this later in the webinar. And in terms of the final myth here, we hear this one a lot. And really the good news here for everybody is Tempo is part of a thriving Atlassian ecosystem that can provide you, the customer, with all the information you need to make the right decision, and a network of business partners, as I mentioned, such as eCore, who can really do the lion's share of the work for you. So with that introduction, I'll hand things back to Olaf for the first poll question of the day. Olaf?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. Yes, we want to hear from the audience. So I'm going to go ahead, launch the first poll of the day. What we want to know is, what is your migration time frame? So maybe there are somebody here on the call that have already migrated, or you're in the process of migrating at the moment, or you're thinking about you'll need to migrate within the next 6 to 12 months. Maybe you have not even started thinking about it, and you're here to really gather some information so that you can take an informed decision, or perhaps you're even considering options other than Atlassian. So we'll give the audience just a few more moments to answer. We'd really appreciate it. And we will be sharing the results of the poll. Let me see. I think we have enough answers, so we'll go ahead and stop the poll, and then we will share the results. So this should be interesting. Right? We do have someone here that has already migrated and is maybe just making sure everything is working as it should be. Majority will be migrating within the next 6 to 12 months, so that's interesting to see. Maybe Daniel, is this something that you expected?
Yeah, it is. I think certainly what we're seeing, Olaf, and thank you for the question. The poll is customers are starting to understand the implications of migrating away from server products. I think cloud, for a lot of customers, is a great option, and we'll cover some of those benefits on the webinar today. But we're certainly seeing customers starting to warm up to this idea. They understand the timelines as outlined by Atlassian back in October, I believe it was, that by February 2024, they really do have to have either a cloud or a data center instance to replace their server apps. And that is something that we are obviously very conscious of. We're making sure that our customers are fully informed, obviously with cleaners guidance from the product team. We're making sure that we ourselves are well prepared for the change. But I think a lot of customers are, it's interesting to see that, more than half the customers on the call today are looking, actively at the migration in the next year. That is something that we're seeing across the board, and is absolutely reflective of our understanding of the current market. Alison, I don't know if you had any comments from an eCore perspective on these numbers here.
So I can see why the be migrating in the next 6 to 12 months is the majority of this, because at eCore we have seen a huge uptake rather, in the number of companies that are reaching out to us to have them assist with the migrations. Because once they start looking at it and seeing the steps, they're like, you know what, maybe I'll pull in another consulting company to help us with that. So that aligns exactly with the numbers that we're seeing here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for participating. And with that, I am really glad to hand it over to Alison, who will walk you through a use case and give you some more details. Take it away, Alison. I'm going to start on your slide and then I'll give you the remote control.
All right, there's my slide to start with. So thank you, Daniel and Olaf. I'd like to start by saying how much we at eCore enjoy working with Tempo. With our consulting experience, we help companies to adopt and leverage Atlassian solutions and the various marketplace apps to meet their business requirements and improve their technology processes. Here's the agenda for the topics I'll be covering today: the benefits of Atlassian Cloud, how to successfully migrate to the cloud, a case study review, and then I'll participate in the Q&A session at the end. So according to Gartner, 80% of enterprises today are moving towards agile development in a cloud environment. Each company has its own specific needs and priorities, but there are some frequent reasons why organizations are moving to Atlassian Cloud. The first is time to value. The ability to ship new products and services faster allows companies to gain a competitive edge. The second is return on investment. Utilizing the cloud reduces the need for ownership and maintenance of systems, so the focus can be on investments in digital transformation. The last is innovation. Cloud always has the latest versions and tools, allowing companies to speed up innovation and be able to maintain growth in an ever-changing world. Let's look at these reasons in a bit more detail. Within time to value, there are 4 areas we'll address. First one's availability. Atlassian products are designed for high performance and availability and built on first-class technologies like Amazon Web Services. Their goal is to achieve a minimum of 99.9% uptime in their cloud operations. In the second quarter of last year, their availability even reached 99.99%. 99.9% represents less than 9 hours of downtime a year. For comparison, a company that struggles to achieve even a 98% uptime would have more than 7 days of downtime per year. So the difference between days and hours is pretty significant there. The second topic is accessibility. With so many people working from home, many companies were and are still struggling to keep up with VPN and server performance. Moving to the cloud takes a big burden off the IT department and improves user productivity. Flexibility is a key feature, with the ability to scale up or down in minutes instead of weeks, spending less time on upgrades and patches. Lastly, we have security. It can be difficult and costly for a company to keep up with security risks and compliance requirements of the modern world. Atlassian's committed to protecting the privacy of data according to industry best practices, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, known as GDPR, ISO 27001 and ISO 27008 standards, as well as SOC 2 and SOC 3 certifications. They're open in their security and compliance policies that they're implemented, with their audits and certifications available at Atlassian.com/trust. The second aspect is return on investment. If you look at the monthly subscription cost of cloud versus server, cloud may initially look more expensive. However, as Daniel previously mentioned, if you look at the total cost and long-term value, that's where on-prem can become a consistent drain of capital. Additionally, with cloud, you can free up administration resources and focus on strategic change. Next, we have innovation. In cloud, you will always have the latest Atlassian tools and functionalities. You can easily scale and improve your systems to help your team ship new products ahead of customer trends. There are many cloud applications in use these days, such as Zoom, Slack, Microsoft Teams, and it's easy to integrate these apps with Atlassian products. In a server environment, you'd have to deal with firewalls, access restrictions, different versions, and so on. There are new cloud-only features such as next-gen projects, admin insights, a new Confluence editor, sandbox, IP allow list, and many others. Many of you may already be familiar with the Atlassian product portfolio. Whether you're part of a development team, DevOps, HR, finance, or marketing, Atlassian provides cloud tools and solutions to benefit all areas of your organization. While their individual products are great on their own, when used in tandem, collaboration and productivity are increased due to the open nature of the Atlassian Cloud platform. Atlassian offers different cloud plans, from free to enterprise. The most common are the standard and premium plans. With the standard plan, you can get all the products that you know, such as Jira Software, Jira Service Management, Confluence, and Bitbucket. You get the standard support time, and a limitation of 250 gig of storage per product, which for the majority of organizations is more than enough. With the premium plan, you get additional support hours and access to premium functionalities such as admin insights, sandbox, whitelisting, and more. The enterprise plan is for those clients who have a very large implementation of Atlassian products and want dedicated support and guidance, data residency, or an improved SLA. Now that we've heard about the many reasons to move to Atlassian Cloud, let's talk about what it takes to get there. As mentioned, when undertaking a cloud migration, many clients work with an Atlassian solution partner to enhance success and reduce risk. At eCore, we've helped our clients migrate their existing server applications to the cloud, or in several cases, we've consolidated multiple cloud instances into one. We'd like to share the steps involved in this journey, as well as present one of our case studies. We know there are many reasons why a company would want to move their Atlassian products to the cloud. But before embarking on this journey, each organization needs to step back and consider how it'll impact them. Considerations need to be reviewed, such as why do you want to move to the cloud? These are the reasons and the benefits that we discussed earlier. Understanding the benefits of being on the cloud. Understanding pain points, because although there's many benefits from moving to the cloud, there are understandably some pain points as well that can be encountered along the way. Any security and compliance implications. And last but not least, be open for change to both systems and processes as needed. Migration to the cloud can follow one of a few different paths. The best strategy for an individual organization will vary depending on factors such as the size of the company, the data to be migrated, and the type of team who will first use the cloud applications. With a move all at once approach, the first one on the screen, an organization can move their existing on-prem Atlassian products to a new cloud instance at one time, including all projects and spaces, all configurations and data. Optionally, projects can be moved one by one or several at a time. With this approach, not all projects and configurations are migrated. Obsolete or inefficient projects and spaces are not moved to the cloud. This allows an organization to clean up unused projects, spaces, and customization. The cloud site can then be set up to take advantage of new capabilities, leaving unneeded aspects of the old instance behind. The Jira Cloud Migration Assistant enables project-by-project migrations from server to cloud. And the Confluence Cloud Migration Assistant provides the ability to move content, users, and groups from Confluence Server or Data Center to the cloud. For companies with multiple Jira instances housing different information wanting to merge, a consolidation of multiple instances, whether server or cloud, to a single instance can be done. This often is the case when companies acquire or merge with another company and both already have Atlassian products. The migration from a server instance to a cloud instance encompasses different phases. This slide shows us the phases at a high level. The first phase includes an in-depth assessment of the organization's existing Atlassian products and creates a plan for the future cloud solution. The second phase includes the preparation steps needed to do the migration. This ensures all steps are accounted for and are shared among impacted teams so everyone's aware of the steps involved. This phase also includes upgrades of existing server apps to the latest version prior to the migration. The third phase is the migration itself, including a test migration of server data to the cloud instance, validation, and the prod migration of upgraded data to the cloud. We'll look at each of these phases in more detail. As we review, the server to cloud migration phases also apply to a cloud-to-cloud consolidation. Phase 1. Phase 1 is the assessment phase. In this stage, it's important to review in detail the applications an organization already has, including any marketplace apps being used, specifically reviewing how the organization uses those apps from a process and functionality standpoint. Each application is analyzed to determine how the cloud migration will impact existing functionality, as well as checking for app compatibility in the cloud. Apps or features that are not available in cloud are identified. Often server apps have functionality that's been incorporated into the main applications, such as Jira or Confluence, so those apps are not needed in the cloud. A company may decide to go with an alternative app that's compatible or just stop using the app altogether. Additionally, this is a good time to review new requirements with the stakeholders based on functionality that's available in a cloud solution. A solutions document's prepared, outlining the findings of the assessment, and then the final cost of purchasing Atlassian apps and additional add-ons for cloud are compiled and included in the solutions document. Phase 2 involves creation of the migration plan and preparing the current environment for migrating to the cloud. The migration plan is created with all tasks needed to deliver the cloud solution using the chosen migration path, whether it's a move all at once, move specific projects, or a consolidation. The plan also includes the best way to migrate each specific marketplace app, as some have different ways to migrate. The selected option is based on what's best for each organization. And I know later in the webinar, Tempo is going to explain some of those different migrations that are available for Tempo timesheets. The plan includes steps to upgrade and migrate all the applications from server to cloud, with backup steps, validation steps, tasks to do after the migration, such as updating avatars, who's responsible for each task, the duration of each. It's useful to list in the plan any apps not being migrated for reference and clarity. The second part of this phase is to upgrade the current server environment if needed and prepare the instance for migration. The on-prem server apps typically need to be upgraded so that they are at the most recent server version before migrating the data to cloud. This also includes upgrade of any additional marketplace apps. Phase 3 includes the actual migration of data to the cloud. This begins with migrating data from the upgraded staging server to the cloud instance. Upon completion of the data migration from staging to cloud and user configuration, the data is validated by key users to confirm all processes work as expected. Only after the staging migration has been validated is the production migration done. Any lessons learned during the staging migration are then applied to the production migration, with steps executed to complete the final migration to the cloud. This is all followed by validation of the cloud instance and sign-off by key users. Then at this point, all users can be redirected to the new cloud environment. Once the migration is complete, the ongoing task is to support users as they begin using the cloud applications, such as training in new features, followed by retiring the servers. How to estimate the migration. When estimating the migration, there are several factors to consider. As would be expected, the number of Atlassian applications, Jira software, Jira Service Management, Confluence, and Bitbucket, and the number of marketplace apps have a large impact on the overall migration estimates. The more apps, the more time it will take to review each of those, upgrade, as well as time to test after upgrading and migrating. Another key consideration is the current version of the applications. The upgrades may need multiple iterations from one version to the next to arrive at the final most recent version if the existing on-prem version is quite old and hasn't been upgraded for several enterprise release cycles. As we mentioned earlier, there can be challenges with any migration. There are many things to consider, and this slide shows a summary of some common challenges. The goal is to plan well and be prepared so these items aren't showstoppers. Application size. Larger applications have more configurations, more workflows, more schemes, and more spaces, pages, and documents and Confluence. So the migration can become complex with larger application size. A large number of marketplace apps can introduce challenges because of the sheer number of apps to review for cloud compatibility, migration, and confirmation steps. In addition, the types of apps used can present additional analysis and migration challenges if they're set up in a complex manner or have a lot of customization, or if the app functionality works differently on the cloud and the app configuration needs adjustment to work as expected. User management can be challenging because when we consolidate multiple instances into one, there's different ways directories are set up and consolidated. Plans need to be established to ensure users are edited and mapped to groups correctly. Migration insights. Based on our experience with a number of cloud migrations, we've compiled some migration insights and best practices that we found help to ensure a successful migration. One, the preliminary health checks are vital before you even start. It's crucial to check versions of existing apps. Beyond a failure to meet infrastructure needs, having two incompatible systems is a primary reason data migrations fail. Staging environments should be used to test a migration before moving prod data to the cloud. A staging instance also allows server upgrades to be done and tested before upgrading production. This approach helps fix any issues in advance, which improves production times with more reliability. Testing is an area to focus on. Validating your configurations work, such as outgoing mail, backup routines, workflows, and also suggested to review the Jira log to make sure there's no errors that occurred afterwards. Post-migration, data reconciliation should be done to verify the information in a merged instance. And lastly, training should be conducted for users to better understand the new processes that may have changed as part of the migration or consolidation. So the next few slides highlight some specifics related to an actual server to cloud migration we implemented for a large global insurance company. You can see this is just at a high level, the kind of data we identified during this assessment. You can see the existing versions, the Active Directory info, the number of projects and spaces. As you can see, this company had a significant number of marketplace apps, 16 alone for Jira, including Tempo timesheets, a large number of projects and spaces in Confluence, with 2,500 users in both Jira and Confluence. This slide shows the different phases executed for this migration and the sequence of those activities. This is a typical plan, but plans may differ as each organization will have different needs due to their existing structure and planned cloud instance. As previously outlined, we began the migration to cloud with a thorough assessment of all their Atlassian products and marketplace apps. We had a combination of findings that were presented to and reviewed with the client. The majority of the apps were available in the cloud and were implemented, such as Tempo timesheets. Some apps or features not available in the cloud were also identified. The client confirmed they were not using the app features and opted to not implement an alternative. This effort also helped them reduce and streamline the number of marketplace apps. Because Jira needed to be upgraded, our next step was to set up Jira and Confluence staging instances to match their current production, both version and data. We then upgraded staging and production. Marketplace apps were also upgraded at this time to be compatible with the upgraded Jira and Confluence. After the staging upgrade, the client validated to ensure all functionality worked as expected on the latest version. After that period, Jira, Confluence, and their apps were upgraded in production. Following the successful upgrades, the migration was done first from the staging instance and then for production. We configured Atlassian Access for SSO functionality, made configuration changes in a few of the apps, then supported the client during their validation and cloud rollout. At the end of the migration, this was the overall view of our client's cloud instance, with Jira Software, Jira Service Desk, and Confluence on the cloud, with Atlassian Access and Okta as their identity provider, and several marketplace apps, including Tempo. They had a lot more apps, and these are just a handful that we're showing here in this picture. So as we near the end of our migration journey, let's recap. Undergoing a Jira migration or consolidation is a daunting task for any organization, but following a best practices outlined in the session helped to complete a successful migration to the cloud. This concludes my presentation, and I'll turn this back over to Olaf from Tempo.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Allison. This was terrific, and I hope it answered a lot of questions for the audience. But we want to hear from the audience again, and I'm going to take back control. So the second poll of the day, we want to know, what is your biggest migration concern? So we'll go ahead and launch the poll itself. And Hofi, I think you have to do that for me again. Thank you so much. So is your biggest migration concern the potential cost, or is it perhaps the data security? Are you more worried about apps performance or the capability and resources available on cloud? Or is it simply the hassle of migrating that you're anticipating? And we'll give you a few moments to answer, and we really appreciate it if you take some time to respond, and we will share the results with everyone and discuss them as well. And I think we probably have all the answers we need. If you haven't answered, I'll give you a few more seconds, so please take some time and choose. Is it the cost, the security, the performance, the resources, or the hassle that you're most worried about? And I think that's enough responses for now. So we'll go ahead and close, and we'll share the results. Great. Oh, this is a nice mix. Let me see. Hlynur, what do you think? Was this what you anticipated? It's spread nicely over all the different options.
Yes, thank you, Olaf. Kind of is, yes. What I expected to see is kind of like the most interest in the last two, which I put onto the same kind of category: capability and resources, and hassle of migrating. It's like the amount of work and you know how complex it can be. And I understand that this might be the biggest concern for customers because of how Jira can be a complex environment with all of its apps and potential customizations. So yeah.
Exactly. And Allison, is this what you saw with your customers? Is it the hassle of migrating that is their biggest concern beforehand? And how do you help them mitigate that hassle?
Absolutely. This is the biggest thing we see in conjunction with the second to the last one there, that you have capability and resources. A lot of times companies come in and they say one of two things. Hey, we can do this ourselves, but we just don't have the people to do it. Or this is so overwhelming, we need somebody who has done this before. And as I had mentioned, because if you have a partner that has done multiple migrations, then they have that skill set and we saw this before, this is how we handled it. And we go through all of those findings with the customer closely, so they know any potential problems that we've identified and how we're going to address them, so they're perfectly at ease.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. So we'll go ahead and close the poll. And with that, I will hand it over to Hlynur, who will tell you a bit more of a status update, because there are some updates, right?
Yeah, well, just a couple of quick slides to tell you about what we've been working on here at Tempo to prepare for this transition from server to cloud. We've been actually investing in this quite heavily over especially past few months, but we started actually a little bit more than a year ago with a visit to Atlassian in Sydney. So the way we've been approaching it, this is kind of like in two kind of phases. The first one is to better support a manual migration path for all of our products, or for the products that actually have a cloud counterpart. That means Tempo Timesheets and Tempo Planner, but also Prime Timesheets reports and gadgets, and Prime Time Reports. So customers are able to migrate basically today using a combination of backup and restore features in Jira, together with custom scripted solutions where they might use both APIs from Jira as well as APIs from Tempo. So we've been working on the documentation to help with this, building out like a very nice guide, how-to guide to try to guide customers down the right path. The customers that do want to take this approach of doing the manual migration. We've kind of put in place an active support process so that we make it easier for customers to kind of find assistance or find the information they need to go through this successfully. And finally, we're of course been working directly with partners such as eCore, who are assisting our customers with executing this migration. The other part of this, do I have control, Olaf, or can you maybe just switch? Yeah, thank you. This is kind of the next step, and this is what we've also been working on, but it's we're not there yet. This is the an automated migration path which we're building in cooperation with Atlassian. It's kind of like it's an extension of their cloud migration tool for Jira. They call it the App Migration Assistant, and it's designed to migrate Jira together with all of the installed apps, or the apps that actually support this tool. So this is what we've been working on over the past few months, and we're still working on it. We are kind of very close to actually completing kind of the bulk of the work. We're close to supporting this automated migration of all of the Tempo data, kind of the core data, you know, the teams, the accounts, the time records or work logs, and so on. What we haven't done yet is supporting migration of configurations. So those will probably have to be done manual at least to begin with. And maybe to that point where we're at in the process with Atlassian is that they are scheduling an EAP of this tool. It's currently not available to customers, but they're scheduling an EAP for this in April. And they've actually opened up customer registration. There's a link behind this. We'll share this after the webinar and with the deck, but also in a follow-up email. And this is the next step for us, for the automated migration path, is to make Tempo available through the Atlassian App Migration Assistant through an EAP to begin with. And then this is, of course, led by Atlassian, so the general availability is going to be announced by Atlassian later. At this moment in time, we do not have a date for that. So that's it. That's where we're at.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hlynur, and thank you, Alison, as well. With that, we will open up for questions, and please use the Q&A tab on the Zoom panel that you should see on your screen. We'll cover as many questions as we have time for. And I'm just going to take a quick look and select the first one. Let me see. I think this one is good. Maybe for you, Alison. You mentioned cloud migration assistance in the webinar. When are they needed, and are they free?
Thank you, Olaf. So yes, the cloud migration assistants are free. And for Jira, the migration assistant is generally useful when you're migrating some projects to the cloud, when you're going to migrate to an existing cloud site because you don't want to overwrite what's already there, or if you want to migrate in phases. And then for Confluence, you want to use the assistant when you're going from server or data center to a new or existing cloud site. And then you wouldn't use it if you were going from Confluence Cloud to a new cloud. But even if you use that migration assistant, you still make sure you go through the steps of the assessment and the planning and the testing, all those other phases that we looked at before.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we'll go back to the questions here. So let me see. Normally, the newest features are being rolled out for Jira Cloud users and will be available later on Jira on-premise users. Is that similar with Tempo features? So I guess, Hlynur, this is a question for you and the product team.
Yeah, good question. This is exactly what we set out to do here at Tempo. We're a cloud-first company, so we want to design and deliver our features, new features on the cloud product line first, but then strive for as much alignment between the platforms as possible and move them over to server like a subsequent step. There have been some exceptions to this in the past, but this is certainly the line we're taking, cloud first. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And here's another one. I guess this one is for you as well, Hlynur. When will Tempo provide full support for migration of Tempo timesheets from Jira Server with advanced roadmap to Jira Cloud without having to use consultants?
I'm not exactly sure what advanced roadmap refers to, but like I was explaining in my second slide, we are working on this actively, and the next step in that journey is the Atlassian EAP for the app migration assistant, and that is scheduled for April, and you will be able to register for that EAP through a link we will provide after this webinar.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Are there any concerns, Hlynur, with the REST APIs for migration?
Concerns we should have right now. If you're interested in manual or performing a manual migration, then we believe that we have all of the APIs needed to perform that, to perform the migration. So if that is the question, then they should all be there. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. There's more questions for you, Hlynur. I heard that the migration can be done by sending the database directly to Atlassian. Is this okay for Tempo?
Well, yes. I mean, we're not directly supporting it, but if this is something that Atlassian is doing, yeah, I would think so, but I can't maybe answer it definitively right now. I mean, you would need to export the database first. I think this is just something that we would need to consider through our support process that we have in place. So we have this, like I mentioned before, we have this support process in place where our customers can look for assistance and direction on how to perform things. And this is a question that I think we would need to address through that channel.
All right, here's another one, roadmap related. What happens with Tempo budgets?
Yeah, so the idea is that gradually Cost Tracker will replace, or Cost Tracker on cloud will actually fulfill or solve the same use cases, or at least a lot of the same use cases as Tempo budgets does today. But like right now, there is no migration path. There are different products. There's a huge gap between the capabilities within Tempo, between Tempo Cost Tracker and Tempo budgets. But customers, they are able to solve like a subset of their use cases through Cost Tracker. But this is just something we're aware of, and we might be investing a little bit more in trying to help customers move between. But as it stands, the feature gap is just too much. So right now, I guess the short answer is there is no Tempo budgets on cloud.
Okay, thank you. Maybe this one is for you, Allison. Approximate timeline for migrating Jira without Confluence with full Tempo suite on a 500-seat license. Is that something that you can give ballpark numbers on?
Oh boy, there's so many things. You said full suite of Jira product, right?
Jira, again, no Confluence.
No Confluence. And then it truly does depend on the apps, the applications. If it was just Jira, probably a couple of weeks is, and again, please don't quote me, anybody listening on this call that it truly does depend, because we've had some go from 2 weeks to a few months, as you can imagine, because there are so many apps that you have to research. And then all those stages that we mentioned, you pull in the client to validate between each one. So after you upgrade, you have the client validate. Then you upgrade prod, you have the client validate. So think of each of those things. You're doing them on a weekend, typically, or after hours. And then only after that can you start migrating the data. And then you do the staging migration, and you have a client go in and validate, and then you do the production one. So depending on what version the current instance is at, that tells you how many upgrade iterations you need and how many apps you have impacts the migration stage. So I would say at a minimum a couple of weeks.
Great, thank you. And here's a question about API and related to reports. Hlynur, I guess this one is suited for you. We're using the Tempo API already to create PDF reports, some created externally and some created with better PDF plugin. Will we still be able to use the same API endpoints on cloud as on server?
So they're not the same endpoints. So there's always going to be some amount of work to at least, make tweaks between them. We have the REST API, the set of REST APIs on cloud. It should provide the same functionality as it does on server. So all the same use cases should be solved on cloud as well. But maybe the biggest difference, and I'm not sure if this is relevant or not for you, is that we do not have the servlet API available on cloud that we do have on server. So if there's something that you're using there, there's a possibility that it might be a little bit more difficult to do the same thing on cloud. But I think most of the cases are covered, but you might have to do 2 or 3 calls instead of 1 on the cloud end.
Great, thank you. And Daniel, maybe you can comment on this. This is a licensing question. When a member in our audience has a Jira on-premise license, which will end in April 2022, and they're able to migrate in the upcoming 12 months by using a free Jira Cloud edition, but their Jira or their Tempo on-premise license will end in April. What would you recommend they do in that situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, and that is something, again, if that specific customer wants to reach out to their Tempo representative, there are a number of promotions that we're running for our server customers right now. And they are very much in line with what Atlassian are offering. So we always want to make sure that customers are aware of those options. Obviously, for any pro-rated server licenses, that investment will be set off against a cloud license for that customer, because the last thing we want is for our customers to be financially impacted negatively by this by the migration. So yeah, I would just encourage that customer to reach out to Tempo directly, and we can have those discussions face to face.
Terrific, thank you. And Alison, this is maybe in your area on can the cloud migration tool operate as a sync where we could perform an initial migration, then a second migration after testing is completed on the cloud, and sync any of the changes and the change data from server, really having a cloud and server instance at the same time and migrate twice. Is that something that can be done?
It's definitely not recommended. Oh, let me make sure I'm not on mute. No, I'm not on mute. It's definitely not recommended because of changes that can be made and trying to sync those up. We recommend doing all of staging and then doing all of production at one time.
Okay. Here's a related question. Can I retry the migration if it does not work at the first try? Does it break my server data?
No, it doesn't break the server data because it's purely extracts from there.
Okay, perfect. Hlynur, here's one for you. Will I have all the same features for Tempo Timesheets Server as I do in Tempo Timesheets Cloud?
Most of the features are also available on cloud that are available on server, but there are some differences. And we have a page which we could share with you after this webinar, which outlines those differences. I think I'm not going to count them up here, but because some of them are like, the devil's in the detail type of things. One of them is one of the work attributes differences that we don't offer the dynamic dropdown on server as we do on cloud as we do on server. An example of a larger feature that's not on cloud is managed staff, which helps you move your users between workload and holiday schemes. The other direction, though, we have some new things on cloud that are not yet on server, including a better permission controls. So we have added a global permission control and a feature that allows you to manage permissions across multiple teams at the same time. But yeah, so yes, there are some differences, not a lot, but I encourage you to take a look at the documentation and make sure that you understand what they are before you make a decision. We will be working on gradually reducing those as much as possible. Sometimes it's kind of we're dependent on Jira to be able to do stuff on cloud, but we'll be working on reducing those differences as we move forward.
Great, thank you, Hlynur. Here's a question for you, Alison. Is it possible to directly go from on-prem Confluence 3.3.1 to the latest version on cloud?
On there, I would have to investigate that. So I don't want to speak out of turn on the call. So I can take that action item and get back to you.
No problem. All right. Let's see here. We have a few more questions. We have a few more minutes, so we might have time for a couple more questions. We moved our Jira server with Tempo to GCP around a year ago, and so far we never had any issues with that regarding the security and performance. What do you think about this approach? It would be way more cheaper since servers are Linux-based. I'm going to leave that open. Who wants to comment on that first? I don't know if Hlynur or Alison, if you have any insights onto this.
I will have to defer because I kind of don't understand the question. What does GCP mean, for example?
Yeah, I think we could just refer to what both Alison and Daniel said about the hidden costs. There are definitely some pros of being on cloud. You can defer some costs that normally you would be required when you're on server. So there's options out there for sure. All right. Oh, Google Cloud Platform. That's the one.
Right.
Our current Jira server authenticate users against on-premise, and who it can be done when Jira migrated to the cloud. Yes. Do you have any information about authentication on the cloud, Hlynur?
Not that nothing I can answer kind of on the spot here, but I think this is one of the things that we could follow up with.
Yes. There's a lot of acronyms there I'm not familiar with, so thank you. This person is helping me out here a lot, so thank you. And Alison, do you have any comments as well?
I do. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So if the current Jira server uses Active Directory, it can be integrated with Jira on the cloud by using that Atlassian access that I mentioned. It's another piece of software that if you want to do any kind of identity management or SAML or single sign-on, you get that and it kind of coordinates between your Jira and Confluence and your identity provider. And Active Directory is definitely one of those supported identity providers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is all the time for questions we have today. Thank you everyone so much for joining. We will be sending out a follow-up email to all who registered. You'll get a recording, you get the slide deck, and we get a lot of helpful links, including links to our server migration guide on our website and more information in our help center and our documentation. If you want to reach out to eCore, we'll make sure that you have those, you have ways to connect with them. But otherwise, stay tuned. We will have more server to cloud migration webinars coming up. So take a look at our website and see if you want to join some of those. Otherwise, thank you so much, Alison, for being with us here today. It's been a real pleasure. Any final comments before we close this session?
No, I appreciate you having us here. And as part of this seminar, it was good to see what Tempo had to offer as well.
Great. And thank you, Hlynur, and thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone in the audience. Have a great rest of the day and stay safe. Goodbye.